Okay, what I wanted to go over is selection methods, different ways that you can select sub-objects inside a Max to manipulate them. Okay, so in Max, when we have an object here, this is just a flat plane that I've converted to an editable poly. You'll notice that when I go over here to where it says editable to poly, there's actually a little arrow here, and you can open this up, and then we have sub-objects in here. You have vertices, which are the points between these edges. You have edges themselves. You have a border, which is an open edge all the way around something. You have a polygon, which is an individual, in this case, a quad. And then you have elements, and I don't have any elements in here. An element is where the object is split off, and I'll go into that a little bit further. But you'll notice that we also have icons in here which correspond to that. So these are the exact same things. Okay. Now, another thing you need to be aware of is that we can transfer from one of these to the other. So in other words, if I have certain polygons, now I'm holding the control key down to add to a selections. Now, a lot of people are used to holding a shift key down. In Max, it's a control key to add to a selection. I can convert this from a polygon selection to an edge selection, as an example. If I hold the control key down when I click on it, then it will convert that from one selection to the other. So holding the control key, going back and forth with these buttons right here, can shift the selection from one attribute to another. Now, you need to always get in the habit of turning these off, because they're not, they won't turn off automatically. So if I have edge on, then I go and want to do something else, edge will stay on. Okay. And that's a factor, especially when I'm using modifiers. So if I'm coming in here and going to add some kind of a modifier in here, it's only going to affect what I have selected. If I turn this off, we'll just use a bend modifier as an example. If I come in here and add a bend modifier to this, which is a modifier to bend things, okay, then so as I bend this, and let's see, we need to change our direction here. She'll say something like the Y, okay, as I bend this, or I could do it on the X-axis too. Okay, it's bending the whole thing. Okay, but if I go down here and I pick, say, these polys, and I leave that on and I go up here and I do the bend, okay, it's only going to apply it to that selection. So it's important to understand that the way Max works is sometimes I want this. I want to select certain things and apply like a bend to it or whatever. But most of the time, you're going to want to shut this off, completely off, okay? What happens a lot of times is people leave this on and they'll have nothing selected. They'll leave this on, then they'll come up here and put a bend modifier on, and then they can't figure out how come it doesn't work. Well, because what you're telling it is to only work on the polygons I have selected, and I don't have any selected. So it won't work. So you're going to make sure that you get in the habit of turning these off. Yes, there are certain times where I want to leave them on, but for the most part, once you go down here and manipulate this in some way, you're going to want to turn these off before you go in here and start putting some kind of modifier on it, okay? And this little trash can right here will remove that modifier. Okay, now, there are speed keys for these, okay? Which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? So you can click them here, you can click them here, or you can use the speed keys, okay? And by the way, the speed keys are hit it once it's on and once it's off. So if I want to turn polygons on, I hit 4 on the keyboard. That turns it off, and when I get finished, I hit 4 again, and I will turn it off. Okay, so while we're actually doing polygons, let's do that, okay? So now, a polygon here, you can grow and shrink a selection. So if I come in here, I can tell it to grow it, and it'll select the polygons around it, or I can shrink it, okay? So, like if I was to select these, I can shrink that selection, okay? So you have shrink and grow in here, okay? Now, sometimes I'm wanting to pick a row here, okay, like so, okay. So if I hold down the Shift key, I have one picked and I hover over it, then you can select that whole row. Okay, so here, or I could go here and select this. That's by me holding down the Shift key when I'm doing that, okay? So Control allows you to add individual things to your selection, okay? Shift key allows you to add rows to this, okay, to your selection, okay? Now, some other things that people aren't aware of is we can save these selections, and it's called a selection set. So right up here's a little blank area that when I have something selected and I come up here and I type something in, it doesn't really matter what I type in, I'm just naming it, and you got to remember to hit enter here, then that will save that selection. So at a later date, sometimes I'm picking things and it may take me a while to pick them and I want to be able to come back and pick them later. Well, if I save a selection set, now I can come in here and click this and it'll bring that selection back up. Okay. All right. Now on edges, okay. On an edge, when I pick an edge like this edge here, now make sure you understand I'm in my select object. Okay. A lot of times people are in their move function or rotate function, which you can do that, but you risk when you're selecting accidentally bumping it and actually moving the object. So this is your selection tool right up here. Okay. So when I select an edge, okay, I have a button over here that says loop. When I click that, it will select all the way across that direction. Or if I select here and I hit ring, it'll select this direction. Okay. So that's loop and ring. By the way, if you double click on it, it will do the loop. Okay. So by single clicking is one, double clicking goes the whole, across the whole thing. So that's another way that you can select things, okay? Another little selection tidbit is that if I click a edge and I want to ring it, okay, that's the Shift key. So if I come in here and I hit the Shift key now and I click, then it's going to ring it that way, okay? So double clicking on an edge is the same as a loop, okay? And clicking and holding the Shift key down and clicking another edge is the same thing as a ring, okay? So a lot of times we're needing to select a lot of different objects to do different kinds of things that we want to do. Maybe split things off, you know, maybe I want to double click on this because I want to move this whole piece up like that. So understanding how you can select things is a huge benefit. Now, by default, when, let's say I was picking vertices, okay, I can drag a box and anything that the box crosses, I can pick, okay? And what I mean by crossing is, let's go to edge. If I select and I'm just, my box is crossing that edge, it will pick it, okay? So let's say that I wanted to pick these 4 edges right here, okay? Just these 4. If I drag a box around that, it's going to pick those and these around them also, okay? Now I could hold down my Alt key, which is to deselect, hold down my Alt and click on these to deselect from those, okay? But this button right up here at the top, it's called, this one on the right here, which is called window crossing. See how the little dotted line, it has a box crossing it? That means anything that I touch when I drag the box gets selected. But if I click that, see how the box is inside of that now? Now that means when I drag a box, the object have to be all the way inside of the box to select it, okay? So when it's off, you're just touching the edges and it selects them. When it's on, it's anything that's inside of that is selected. So a lot of times we switch in and off of that according to how we're trying to select things. Now, this selection here is the box. If I click and hold this down, we have different options in here, okay? And let's go to vertices. It'll be easier to kind of see this. So if I come in here and go circle, now when I click and hold down, it's going to draw a circle, okay? And since I have this on the inside, then only the things inside of the circle are going to be picked, okay? I also have a loop function here, and what that means is I can draw an irregular kind of loop like this. It automatically closes the loop to select things. So you're just clicking, holding down, you're drawing your loop, and anything that's inside of that loop, it's going to pick because I have this on the inside. Okay, and so a lot of times that's a nice way to do an organic pick. Okay, there's another one right above this one. Okay, and this one allows you to click, hold down, and drag, and now you're click, 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 click to select a certain area. So sometimes the holding the one that's more organic is a little bit harder. And then by the way, it's kind of hard sometimes to close this. You just have to be close to the end and hit enter, and then it will close that for you. Also, escape turns it off. Okay, so if you're in the middle of, picking and you realize, oh, I don't really want to pick those, just hit escape and it'll turn it off. Okay, and then there's a really fun one in here, which is a spray can. Okay, and what this one allows you to do is just click, hold down, and you drag across, and you're picking things by dragging across them. Okay, so if I'm going to edges here, and I click that, then I'm kind of, okay, so you can't have this one on inside. This one's got to be on crossing. And now anytime I just cross across something, so it's kind of like I'm painting a selection. So that's nice to be able to do sometimes too for more organic selection. That comes into effect a lot of times if I'm wanting to create a more organic look. As an example, let's put we'll put a subdivision on here like a mesh smooth, and I'm going to turn off my isoline so I can see this. Now, can you see that it's highlighted these vertices? That's because I left this on. I need to turn that off, and I go back up. And then I'm going to subdivide this several times so we have quite a few parts in here. Now I'm going to go into my edit poly so that I can select polygons. And I'm going to go into vertices. And now I can use that paint tool, and I can come in here and paint a more organic selection. Okay, so that can be done. All right, we'll just dump those off. I go back down to our base. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that you can select things, and we're going to be needing to select things to modify them. Okay, so knowing how to get at your sub-objects and knowing how to select them before we start even getting into manipulating them is a very important part of understanding how to manipulate things inside of 3ds Max. Okay, hopefully that helped you. All right, thank you very much.